One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
What's going on, Rumbillions? Just in time, SpaceX started their intro as well. Let's listen in on it really quick. All right, that's all you get because I don't want to get strikes for the music. Well, we'll be uploading this not live, but after the fact to YouTube. But we're going live on Rumble because I appreciate the free speech to freedom and big old rockets. You know the deal, muster up. Where you from? What you munching on? It's about breakfast time. I had myself a bagel and cream cheese, and an energy drink, because this is too early for me. I'm Kevin from Ohio. Not attending the launch today. The launch attempt, I should say. My money is on it's going to be scrubbed, because this is a brand spanking new beast of a rocket. Huge checklist that needs to be all checked off before it can ignite its 33 Raptor engines. Don't think they're going to get there, but I could be proven wrong. Let's see what they're talking about.
Ship as it awaits its first ever integrated flight test from Starbase, Texas, in just a little over 40 minutes from now. Today, we're hoping to see our Super Heavy booster and Starship spacecraft, collectively referred to as Starship, lift off together for the first time. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Kate Tice, Quality Systems Engineering Manager here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California.
And I'm Shiva Bharadwaj, a Space Operations Engineer here at SpaceX. Now, as many of you know, Starship is SpaceX's latest and largest vehicle developed to date. It represents a fully reusable transportation system designed to carry both crew and cargo to Earth orbit, the Moon, Mars, and beyond.
If you've been following the development of Starship over the last couple of years, you know we've been doing a lot of testing leading up to this big one. Once fully developed, it will be the world's most powerful launch vehicle, with twice the thrust of Saturn V rocket and the ability to carry up to 150 metric tons to orbit. For reference, a 1-liter bottle of water is 1 kilogram, so 150 metric tons is basically 150,000 1-liter bottles of water, or, as I like to think of it, one rather lonely blue whale.
Now, today's test will be the first of many as we work towards transitioning Starship from a developmental to an operational program. Our primary objective today is to gather as much data as we can around the fully integrated vehicles. That means the booster and the Starship and the ground systems. While we have flown Starship in the past, this will be the first attempt of Super Heavy and the first opportunity to validate how the two vehicles operate together.
Any data that we get helps improve the future builds of Starship will be considered a success for the purposes of today's test. Every milestone beyond that is icing on the cake. The further we fly, the more data we can collect. If all goes well, today's flight test could last as long as 90 minutes from liftoff to an expected hard ocean landing for Starship. Whether we end the test with a hard landing or a rapid unscheduled disassembly, or some combination of both, excitement is pretty much guaranteed.
Now, if it does all go well, Super Heavy will fire up its 33 Raptor engines, and it'll lift off from the launch pad down in South Texas. About 3 minutes into the flight, we're going to hope to see the Super Heavy separate from the Starship spacecraft. It'll then perform a flip maneuver. So there's that. You can see that on your screen. And then it'll boost back in order to make a hard landing in the Gulf of Mexico.
And while that's happening, we hope to see Starship's 6-second stage engines ignite and watch as Starship coasts for about an hour at altitudes ranging between 150 and 250 kilometers before re-entering Earth's atmosphere and make its own hard landing in the Pacific Ocean about 250-ish kilometers offshore.
Now, we are getting great camera views right now, but that's because
Nice.
we are on the launch pad. So
Love
we've
it.
got umbilicals and connections straight to the vehicle. But we aren't expecting to get very many good views once we get past booster separation.
Yeah, we do promise, though, for any views that we do get, we will share them in real time. We are watching live with you all, so we're excited to see those views ourselves as well.
Now, in a little bit, we are going to take a closer look at the vehicle and the launch pad. But first, today is a super exciting day.
Why?
Everyone on the teams across Starship have been preparing, doing a number of tests and dress rehearsals for today's launch attempt.
Yeah, that's exactly right. In fact, we saw a nice little recap of those tests in the intro video to today's webcast. For those of you that are following along, you know that.
All right, let's talk a little bit since I'm the one streaming this. Back to me. We'll talk about the rocket here in a second. Let's do the muster. Scrolling up through the chat. Thank you guys for tuning in on Rumble. We're at over 1,100 viewers right now live. Hello. Howdy how. Right from the start, good to see you. Good morning from Dolphin Island, RWL. Arm, what's going on, BFR Arm? Good morning from Indiana. We got an American in the chat. We should have Americans in the chat. There's an American rocket.
What, is this a communist country or something? I thought this is America.
Yes, I am live. Swoley Survival. Keep on cruising. Left Texas last week, so probably won't be able to see much out of the RV window. All right, I heard Texas, so we're going to do the Texas soundbite. Because this is launching from Texas.
I pulled him out of a place on Midgard called Texas.
Look at this guy. Look at this guy. Look at Shades. I'm calling him Shades. Where's John Instructor at, yo? He does the Starship live streams. He's gone. What's going on, Sweden? We got Sweden in the Rumble chat. Good to see you. Locals members, I noticed that our locals live chat stopped for some reason, so I'm going to keep my eye on the comments. I'll just refresh from time to time. That will be our workaround. Old Fart Roger, Spartina, good to see you guys. BFRs. Fox Pup, Mokes, Meg2 Sith, awesome. The usual suspects. Oh, kind of want to know what he's saying.
Which included a comprehensive review of all of our vehicle systems.
I'm sorry, bro. I can't take you seriously. Nerd. It's all right. We're all nerds here. Go for liftoff. Looking for familiar places. South Padre Island. Yep. So I was invited by SpaceX to go see this, but since it was so short notice with the FAA's launch license approval, I declined, which sucks because I have my other two my media badges from the two presentations I did over the last couple of years, so I'm going to be missing out on this one. However, like I said at the beginning of the stream, my money, I'd put all my money on this thing scrubbing before liftoff and not launching today. So maybe I'll get a chance to go. If this gets with, I'm going to kind of like feel it out, how this goes. If they get within T-minus 60 seconds, there's a strong chance I might go to the next one. Definitely if it gets under T-minus 30 seconds, like say it scrubs at T-minus 1 second, I'll probably go to the next one. But I need to contact SpaceX to see if I can still get that media press badge, because those things are pretty sweet. If it's too late, I don't know. I'm gonna be sad. Kevin's gonna be sad. Okay. Javaron, good to see you. Where else are people from? Norway, awesome. Pennsylvania, howdy neighbor. Central Oregon, Buffalo, New York. People are eating cereal and drinking coffee. That's awesome. Welcome everybody. We got another Ohioan in the chat. That's awesome. We'll do Ohio.
We're the Manchester United fan club from Ohio.
All right, let's go big screen here. I'll talk about the rocket here once they go back to that. There it is. So you can kind of see the frost, the snow on the hull of the booster here. Down here is the LOX tank, liquid oxygen. All right, so it's not quite full yet. Right here is about the full line. Here's the methane tank, liquid methane, the cryo tank, and that will go up to about right here. That's the fill line. And they have never flown the booster. They have flown there's 33 Raptor 2 engines. They have never flown this first stage booster before. They have static fired almost all 33 of these engines, just a couple shy. One never started up and another one shut down right after ignition. And when they static fired them, they were only at like 50 to 60% throttling capacity. Now they're going to be at 90% for this liftoff. So it's going to be quite a big boom if it goes. But once again, don't expect that. Expect to be surprised if it lifts off today. Elon did a Spaces thing on Twitter last night that I attended, and I kind of did like a play-by-play of the key moments, I guess. And one of the things he kept repeating was he too does not expect this thing to lift off today. And if for some reason they get lucky and it does, he doesn't expect it to even reach orbit. Okay. Remember, this is the initial maiden flight, first time with a booster flight. Starship has done a half dozen suborbital flights on its own, but that's been a couple years. Never with Raptor 2 engines that it has. This is inside the inner stage right now, or I guess there's not really much of an inner stage. The skirt, that was about right here is what you were looking at. Those were the 3 sea-level Raptor 2 engines and the 3 vacuum RVAC engines, which are optimized for space flight of the Starship. Okay, that's what you were just saying just now. What's going on, South New Jersey and Coffee? And you can see these huge grid fins, all right? These should kind of look familiar if you tune in with us live for the Falcon missions. Falcon 9 booster also has these kind of grid fins. However, these don't fold down like Falcon 9s. They just stay like this, and those will help steer the booster toward its designated splashdown zone. As they were saying earlier in the live stream, the booster, after separation, if it gets that far, will do a boost back burn, kind of make its way back to the coast over here somewhere, and then it will do another burn to kind of gently land in the water and splash down, and they'll fish it out later. That was going to be the original plan for the upper stage Starship off the coast of Hawaii. It's not going to do a full orbit around the Earth. It's going to go out of the atmosphere, kind of coast in a semi-orbit, and then re-enter the atmosphere near Hawaii. And they were going to do a controlled engine burn splashdown, but then they changed their mind. Elon kind of talked about that yesterday in the Spaces. Apparently, Starship's not going to have legs anymore. It was kind of a bizarre part of the interview. Not really sure what to make of it yet, but apparently, from what I took from it, Starship's not going to have landing legs anymore. They're going to catch it with these huge towers, just like they're going to do with boosters in the future, although they won't be doing any of that today. That's what this tower is made for. These huge arms are made to catch boosters and Starships and stack the booster on the launch mount and stack Starship on the booster, which it's already doing, but eventually catch them as well. And apparently they're going to have to build these on Mars and the moon. Well, they won't build it on the moon. The moon doesn't have enough gravity. They can use some sort of landing legs on HLS, which is NASA's Starship that SpaceX is building for them. But as far as Mars goes, maybe they're going to build towers on Mars. I don't know. That seems like it'd take a lot of material to transport there. So I'm sure they won't look anything like this, but I don't know what their plan is. But as of right now, they're not planning on doing any more Earth landings with Starship like we saw with the suborbital flights. That's what I took away from Elon's interview last night. Talking about the heat shield tiles right now. Let's listen in on this.
They make up about 2/3 of the vehicle. There's a couple of different geometries. The one that I have is for the circular portions of the vehicle, so it has this curvature to it. And the one that Shiva has.
Yeah, this kind is a hexagonal shape, and there's several thousand of these all across the body of the vehicle. And it's worth saying we need these because when a spacecraft re-enters from orbital velocity, it's going faster than the speed of sound and causes a lot of heat to build up that has to get dissipated by these heat shield tiles.
Yeah, one thing that's really cool about these is they're super lightweight. Even just holding them, we're able to even just like hear how hollow they are because of the construction. But they do a great job of dispersing that heat during that atmospheric reentry. We actually produce these in-house at what we like to call the SpaceX bakeries. And they're located in Texas and Florida. So it's something that we designed and build in-house. And like we said, there's thousands of them. You can kind of see them on the exterior of the vehicle. So at this point in time, we are at T minus 27 minutes and 18 seconds. So let's head on over to John Innsbrucker for an
There he
update on the
is.
countdown. Hey, John.
John's here.
Thanks, Kate, and good morning. I'm John Innsbrucker, Principal Integration Engineer here at SpaceX. We're currently loading propellant from the ground system into both the first and second stages. Now, both vehicles use the same two propellants. Our fuel is liquid methane at a temperature of just over 100 kelvins, or about minus 272 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, this is a different fuel from Falcon 9, where we use RP1 kerosene. And our oxidizer is liquid oxygen, the same as Falcon 9. But because there's no oxygen in space to support combustion, we have to bring our own. Now, a little bit of a recap. We did the go, no go poll at T minus 1 hour and 45 minutes. And once the team gave their goes, we polled about 20 folks. We started loading propellants onto the booster at T minus 1 hour and 39 minutes. And at T minus 1 hour and 22 minutes, we began propellant loading of the ship, the second stage on Starship.
All right, you can't see it because my face is in the way, but over here they had a checklist, and there is no payload. I should mention that there's no payload aboard. No people, no cargo, nothing. It's just a hollow shell with a bunch of fuel in it, propellant in it. All right, so SpaceX and Elon, they're not confident this thing is going to even reach orbit. Not even confident it's going to lift off today. So you might just be wasting your time here with me. We're not, check out the drone shot. I love it. Man, it's a beautiful day in Texas. Here in Ohio, it's just overcast. It's quite poopy, but it's beautiful down there in Texas. Yeah, the reason I didn't go is because I too am not confident this thing is going to lift off. Again, it was short notice. I have no confidence it's going to lift off today, although I could be wrong. And if I am wrong, then I'll go to the next Starship launch. But yeah, because the FAA released the launch license the last minute on Friday, it was hard to make plans. I had a busy weekend scheduled. My brother-in-law and my sister, their barn got hit by one of those tornadoes, you know, that cluster of like 60-some tornadoes that happened across the Midwest a couple weeks ago. Their barn got decimated by one. So I spent my Friday helping them out after I released my video of SpaceX in the news. That's why I might look like a little red. Got pretty sunburned. And then I had to build a garden. I've been building a garden, a big garden for the lawyer wife the last couple days, like all day. I'll have to show you guys some pictures of that. Oh, dogs want to chime in apparently. Let's see if I can get them on camera. I got Doggo Cam hooked in. Come here. There's Pepe's. What's going on, PPOP? And that was Wiley Bear. Wiley Coyote just came in. Come back. You have to take my jib. Let's see if he takes my jib. Come here, Wiley. Come here. Take my jib. You gonna take him? No, he's not gonna take my jib. What you doing? What's going on, buddy? And Kunu's the one being a loudmouth downstairs. Let's go back to big screen. All this animation should look familiar to you if you tune into my Friday episodes of SpaceX and the news. I like to use these as B-roll. So what they're showing right now is a bunch of Starlink Next Generation 2 satellites being deployed from Starship. That's probably going to be the first official payload that SpaceX does put on Starship. All right, they do have those Pez dispenser slots already cut in, but they've been covering them up for these next few Starships, so we won't see those anytime soon. But they want to get as many of those deployed as possible, and they need Starship to lift these things to orbit because the non-compact versions, the actual real versions, are too big to fit inside a Falcon fairing. Right now they're showing Inspiration 4, which was the first ever fully commercial crew going to space on Dragon. That happened, I think, last year. And they're going to do Polaris Dawn, which will be another Dragon mission coming up at the end of this year, potentially. And they'll do a couple more missions, and then they'll have the first Starship crew will be of those guys. Not those exact people, but Jared Isaacman will be on there. He's a commander. Now they're showing MZ for the Dear Moon project. He's a Japanese billionaire who's taken all these artists up on the first Starship mission to orbit the moon, not land on it, but orbit it. And what he did was he had people apply artists apply to go on this first mission. And I did, but I made my video like making fun of the whole thing. You can find it on my channel on Rumble or on YouTube. You can see my video submission. It's only about 60 seconds long, and I just basically made fun of everything. So I wasn't picked, obviously. I knew I wouldn't be because I'm kind of the black sheep in the community, even though I started this whole genre. And I was the first to report on Starship being built in the Texas desert here in Boca Chica. I guess it's not really much. Well, it is a desert, especially in the cooler months. But when I reported on Starship the day that everyone found out about it, it's my video of that is what pushed my YouTube channel into the limelight, and I got like 20,000 views. And that's what really gave me support and pushed my channel where it's at now. I never had a video get that many views until that point. And then it started this whole new thing and whole new beast. Now there's a bunch of channels that do this thing, which is cool. SpaceX could use all the support. But yeah, been a long time coming waiting for this thing. A long time. So if you've been around for a while and you know how long people have been anticipating this thing. And if you're new to this and all this is news to you, then congratulations, you got in just in the right time. You didn't have to wait for anything. It's just happening. So what you're looking at right now is Starhopper. This was here we go. This was the first prototype launch just to test out like the gimbling and the stabilization of the Raptor 1 engine there, just one single engine. Kind of like a grasshopper test they used to do for Falcon 9s before they started landing them on the coast and on drone ships. So this was in August 2020, if you can't see that down below. I did live stream this. I started doing videos on Starship here in Boca Chica on December 23rd, 2018. That's when it first became known that they were doing this out in Texas. Until then, and at that time, Starship was actually called BFR, Big Falcon Rocket. Before that, it was called ITS, Interplanetary Transport System. So I had talked about it previously, but we didn't know it was being built in Texas, and they had just started. And at first, people thought they were building water towers out there in the desert, but it turned out to be like nose cones for that Starhopper, but then they ended up ditching the nose cone and just making it round on top. So here we go with the first suborbital flight test in December of 2020. Or I'm sorry, December of 2020, and then SN9 was February of 2021, which is this one right here. SN8 blew up upon its landing attempt, as did SN9, spoiler alert. I wonder if they have music playing right now.
Fortunately had a dramatic ending to the end of that flight when we had a failure on its engine to relight that resulted in one of those rapid unscheduled disassemblies. But what was really, really exciting about both serial numbers 8 and 9 is how quickly we were able to achieve just our primary objectives in those two high-altitude test flights. In addition to getting lots of great data, Starship successfully demonstrated control of the vehicle and subsonic re-entry capability.
Ultimately, we performed 9 Starship high-altitude test flights in total, and in May of 2021, SN15 launched from Starbase, reached an altitude of about 10 kilometers, performed a number of maneuvers, and safely returned to the launch site. This was the first Starship prototype to fly, control its descent, safely land, and to be recovered in one piece.
Now, having achieved that success in our suborbital campaign, one of the next big challenges for upper stage reusability is to survive the high heating hypersonic phase of entry. Combined with the ability to refill our Starship's tank with fuel and oxygen while on orbit is what will enable a fully reusable transportation system that's designed to carry both crew and cargo on these long-duration interplanetary flights, and that's ultimately what will help humanity return to the moon and travel to Mars and beyond in our solar system.
So as you can tell, it is nothing but an iterative process to get to the point that we are today and where we will go from here. That iteration is a core process of how we work here at SpaceX. We like to fly and we like to test early and often, both on the side of hardware and software.
Yeah, that's an awesome point, Kate. Now, we are continuing our countdown to Starship liftoff just over 17 minutes from now. So, of course, let's check in with John for another status update. John?
Thanks, Shiva. Clock is coming up on T-minus 17 minutes from liftoff. We're continuing to click towards zero. However, right now we've just begun listening in. The first stage team is working a pressurization issue. They're troubleshooting that right now. Now, we do have the option, if need be, if we can't solve this, then we would hold the count and probably treat today as a wet dress and not be able to launch.
See, they're already having issues.
We are continuing to do propellant loading on both the Super Heavy and the ship stages. Now, most recently, we began loading liquid oxygen and methane fuel into the header tanks on Starship. At the very top, just underneath the nose there are two small spherical tanks. That's where the fuel and liquid oxygen header tanks are. That started at T-minus 27 minutes, and that propellant loading will continue until T-minus 9 minutes.
So he was just talking about these two header tanks. You can't see them, but they're underneath the hull here in the nose cone. Those used to be inside the tanks themselves, the bigger propellant tanks, but they moved them up to the nose for landing burns, even though Starship's not going to be doing a landing burn. It just keeps the fuel from sloshing so much in those bigger tanks. That way it can feed those engines during that burn more, what's the word I'm looking for? More dependably, I guess.
Configuring the launch pad for liftoff. The booster hold downs are being prepared for the release at liftoff, and the second stage quick disconnect is beginning its configuration for release. The liquid oxygen and methane that are going into the second stage go through that quick disconnect. You can see it in some of the views, the arm that comes out just to the base of the second stage. Now it'll move out of the way as we lift off. At the same time, the SpaceX team continues to check in with the Coast Guard. We're working one boat that's in the safety perimeter.
Come on,
they are
boat.
working to get that boat out of the way. We cleared several other boats out overnight. We're down to one, and we expect that'll be clear so that we can proceed with launch out over the Gulf of Mexico. But as a reminder, T-minus 15 minutes, 10 seconds and counting. We are working an issue on the first stage, and we'll bring an update as we get more insight into that issue.
So Matt Kors, who I guess is also a streamer, is, I guess, streaming this live. I think he's more of a crypto guy, but he's got the wrong rocket on his thumbnail, bro. That's Falcon Heavy. He's not a rocket guy, so I don't even know why he's streaming this. I guess he's just an Elon fan. I appreciate you, Rumble, for putting us on the homepage. I just messed this up when I do that. Hold on a sec. Oh, yeah, check that out. This was the early days. I just paused it, so I'm going to have to fix it. Let's go back and live. There we go.
And the different scene, as you can see by that photo
What
there
just
on
happened?
your screen.
Let's try it
Coast
again.
Guard.
Live.
Yeah, last year they built 4 Starship Super Heavy boosters, 5 Starships, our 200 Raptor 2 engine, and this year they're targeting 5 boosters, 8 Starships in production for 2023. And really, you do need a production system to rapidly iterate, like we were talking about earlier, on the design of the vehicle as we learn more about it from these large tests.
Yeah, absolutely. Pulling on my industrial engineering background, system fill is something that is critical to that goal. Being able to produce and launch multiple Starships means that we have to have a system full of those production vehicles, and we iterate.
Yep. So that's, if you've been around for a while, all this is not news to you. But if you're just joining us, you don't know much about what's going on. Basically, what they're just saying is they have already built several of these Starships that are just almost pretty much waiting for their turn to go on the pad. And that's what SpaceX. That's how they plan and execute their missions, is as rapidly as possible. You know, with the intent of, not so much the intent, but if they blow them up, so be it. They'll learn from it. They'll put what they learned into the next Starship, and hopefully they'll progress until they are successful and reach the point where they are now with Falcon 9, where we haven't seen a Falcon 9 blow up in years. All right, it's been a long time. So that's where they want to get with Starship. And so yeah, we have Starship 24 on the pad right now, and it's on top of Booster 7. Booster 9, I believe, is going to be the next booster to fly. They're just going to skip past 8. And it's already got a ton of improvements on Booster 9 that Booster 7 doesn't have. Like, Booster 7 uses hydraulic Well, yeah, and hydraulic control thrust vectoring, and then Booster 9 uses electronic. I'm pretty sure Booster 7, they might have switched that out. I don't remember. I think from Elon's interview last night, he said Booster 9 has it, but Booster 7 doesn't. I can't remember. But then Starship 25 is being stress tested. It might be Starship 26 that might be on top of Booster 9 for the next one. But I mean, SpaceX has their launch license from the FAA. That's good for like 5 years. So I don't know if they're still limited to 5 launches per year or not. I'm not even sure if it matters, because for the foreseeable future, they're not going to be launching these every other day or so. It's going to take a while to get to that point. And eventually they want to get to the point where they're launching multiple Starship Super Heavy rockets per day. So really quick, I just want to read what I tweeted. I want to read through some of these from last night's interview with Elon, just to kind of make sure everyone's expectations are set correctly, especially now that we've already heard they're having some loading issues with Starship at like T plus 17 minutes. They started having issues. So it's probably not going to launch today for more reasons than just that, but even if it does launch, don't expect it to get to orbit. This is kind of what Elon was talking about last night. He said, quote, Starship is likely to get delayed. Keep your expectations low. Chances of us triggering an abort and pushing the launch are high. They don't want to damage stage 0. Stage 0 is the launch pad and the big tower. If they damage that, if they melt it, it's going to delay launching the next Starship for months and months. There's a million ways this rocket could fail. Kind of hinted at this in Friday's episode. There's a long checklist, a lot of sensors, a lot of parts, moving parts, engines, valves that all have to be golden before they hit that launch button, so to speak. They are building a second tower at the Cape in Florida. However, they don't plan on launching any Starships from there until development at Starbase here in Texas that we're watching right now is done with, or at least further underway. Here's shades again. Biggest concern about this mission for Elon is the amount of engines on the booster. Again, there's 33 of them, which just means there's more of a potential for things to go wrong. He wonders if one fails, will it take out the other engines, or the entire stage, the entire booster itself, or even the launch pad. Again, losing the launch pad would be the worst possible scenario. His money is on it not launching today and not being successful. That would be reaching orbit. But to be clear, it will be successful if they learn from this mission and can move forward with those corrections. He wasn't willing to say what comes after this mission. He wants to get through this mission first. We already talked about the landing legs, and he finished the interview with once again clarifying that it's more likely to scrub today than launch. But we made it within T minus 10 minutes. We'll see how close we get to T minus 0. Again, from my video on Friday, I said it's not even gonna make it to T minus 1 minute. We'll see. We shall see.
We're just inside T minus 9 minutes and counting. We're listening on one of the background loops right now. Flight director is talking about the issue we've had on first stage, working the pressurization system. Decision right now is that we are going to stop the launch for today. We're going to transition the launch attempt to a wet dress rehearsal. So that means we're going to continue with the countdown sequence of events. We'll continue loading propellant, finishing up here shortly on the second stage. We'll also continue loading propellant onto the first stage, wrapping up at T minus 3 minutes.
All right, so what John Inspector just said is they're having issues with loading Starship, which is kind of what I expected. And they're going to turn this into a wet dress rehearsal, or WDR, which basically means they're going to keep loading Starship and Super Heavy with propellant and take it as far as they can to T minus 0, but no longer with the intention of launching. All right, it's just going to be kind of just a rehearsal, all right, a practice test. So Looks like Kev made the right decision not to go. Shocker. All these smarty pants nerds went down there, and now they just wasted their time. Oh, I want to say hello to Louis Lab Padre and those guys. Louis and I have been good friends since we both started reporting on what's been going on down there at Boca Chica. He's a local. Met him several times. Good dude. We talked on the phone. We talked to you on the phone the other day. Just kind of talking about behind the scenes stuff. So I want to say hello to him and his team. Poor guy's been out there camping in the hot sun for a couple days. All for about a 3-minute mission, or in this case, a 0-minute mission. But at least he has his press badge. Lucky. All right, so let's see. They didn't even make it within T-minus 10 minutes. So, or T-minus 10 minutes. So I'm not even going to go for this next attempt. All right, I'm not going until they get at least close to T-minus 1 minute. All right. So I don't know when they're going to push the next attempt. They have backup days scheduled for tomorrow and Wednesday, but it just depends on how severe this issue is or how long it takes to correct it. If they're going forward with a wet dress rehearsal, it's probably not that huge. They can probably get it solved by tomorrow, is my best guess. But yeah, I'm not going to take the chance of going all the way down to Texas again from Ohio, which, you know, in Joe Biden's America is going to cost me $2,000 easily with traveling expenses, rent-a-cars, that kind of thing. I'm not going to go down there until they're at least within T-minus 1 minute. Okay, and here's the thing. They could get within T-minus 1 minute, scrub it because of another issue, and that issue itself could take multiple days, if not a week or so, to fix. So, yeah. This is all to be expected, right? It's a brand new rocket. It's complicated beast, biggest rocket in the world ever in history. They have never launched the booster before. Obviously, it's big. It's bigger than Starship itself. Not as complicated, but still big. More engines. So we should expect this to happen. We should expect it to have multiple scrubs. Elon even tweeted several months ago, I think it was like in the fall, he tweeted that there's going to be multiple countdowns that get scrubbed when they first try to launch this thing.
Through the launch vehicle.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Of course, we wanted to see fire today and lift off, but that's okay. The point of the countdown is to allow the teams to progress to that T0 time in a coordinated fashion and really to unveil any issues prior to the ignition sequence. So the countdown did its job today. It allowed us to identify that press issue, and like John mentioned, the teams are going to work through it, and we are going to basically call it off at T-minus 10 seconds. But the integrated launch teams and us, we are going to treat this as if it were still a launch day. We're going to do this, what we now call a wet dress rehearsal.
Yeah, and we've mentioned the term a couple of times here. We call it a wet dress rehearsal because we are wetting the propellant tanks. We are loading propellant into the vehicle. We've talked about the frost line a little bit here. That exercises the stage 0 system, the ground system, all of our infrastructure that loads propellants onto the pad. That exercises our procedures for the mission control teams. We're monitoring telemetry on the mission control consoles, looking at the pressures and the rates and the temperatures. And some of those things look a little bit different when you're getting up to the pre-flight pressurization levels and full propellant load. So we're learning things today about the integrated tests that are going to set us up for success in a future attempt later on, hopefully in the next 48 hours or so. And Kate, like it's also worth mentioning here, we're still going to take the count through to a pretty around the T-minus 10 second mark. So we're really going to exercise everything that we would up until that point in the vehicle states and ground procedures.
Yeah, it's like we said before, any data that we can collect today is super helpful. And that's exactly what we're doing. We are continuing to collect this data and allow the teams to have be better informed for the next attempt. Unfortunately, due to the needing to recycle the propellant, we are looking at a minimum of 48 hours until we are able to attempt this flight test again. So we're not quite sure what that timing will be at the moment, but we're looking at a minimum of 48 hours at this point in time. But
That's because it takes that long to load up like the ground tanks so they can have that propellant in there and to load up the rocket. Got to get a bunch of trucks in there and fill those tanks up. Man, how depressing it must be to make that trip all the way down there and not even get to see this thing launch. Come on, nerds, use your brains. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, if I lived closer, I would have went. I mean, why not? All right, it just wasn't worth the risk. Sometimes when you gamble, you take the house, but sometimes you don't. It was a risk. So they're just going to take it down to T-minus 10 seconds, and then that will be the end of it. I can't get over how beautiful this day is, man. It's too bad they aren't going to launch. I miss the beach. The wife and I are going on a cruise to Alaska this summer. We haven't been on vacation for about 4 years. So we're like, we should probably go do something. We're turning into shut-ins. Man, look at all those engines.
Yeah, so for those of you that have just joined us, we're now at T-minus 1 minute and 30 seconds to what would have been the launch of our Starship flight test. But unfortunately, due to a stage 1 issue, we are going to utilize today as a wet dress rehearsal. Instead, we are not going to attempt launch. The teams are basically saying that we're scrubbing our launch attempt for today, and we are expecting a minimum of 48 hours in order to...
Yep. So you saw those center cluster of engines moving. All right. That's how the booster steers the rocket upon ascent. It's kind of like balancing a pencil or a yardstick or meter stick on your finger. In order to keep it balanced, you have to move your hand around, and that's what those engines do to keep the rocket pointed in the right direction. The outer rim of, I believe it's 20 Raptor 2 engines are secured. They don't gimbal. They just provide the thrust. So let's listen in and see what happens at T-minus, I guess, 40 seconds because they just stopped the clock.
We begin lighting the engines. Up on your monitor, you can see there, T-minus 40 seconds. We did hit the 40-second hold point, and they are holding for a moment. In the end, they will release that hold. We'll go the last 30 seconds. But yes, when we do get to day of launch, the last thing to look at is in the last 6 seconds, light the Raptor engines in succession. So unlike Falcon 9, we're going to have to do that a little longer. We're hearing right now the clock is going to hold here at T-minus 40 seconds. The Super Heavy and Starship are looking good. So with that, Kate, it's been a fast-paced morning. We got through it fairly quickly. But at this point, we're going to have to call it a morning.
Yeah, that's right. So for those of you that have recently just joined us, we unfortunately had a hold on the countdown today, and that is going to scrub our launch attempt. But we are expecting a minimum of 48 hours in order to recycle. So be sure to keep an eye on our social channels, and we'll share information as soon as it becomes available. Until then, stay safe, and we'll see you soon.
You can also follow me on Twitter, and I will just relay what they say. You don't need to follow SpaceX, just follow me. No, I'm just kidding. Look at Peeps. He's so lazy. Can't even play with Jeb. He took my jib. See if I can get that up here.
They took our jibs. They took your jib.
They took your jib. Took your jib.
Yeah, so we'll try this again in a couple days. Again, don't expect it to lift off. I'm expecting another scrub, but you never know. Could be wrong. Again, I'm not going to make my way to Texas until they get to around T-minus 1 minute mark, maybe even closer to T-minus 0, T-minus 30 seconds or so. I'm just going to have to feel it out. So if you're in the same kind of camp, you want to get down there, but you don't want to just waste your time, I'll let you know. I could always be wrong and miss it, though. They could lift off on the next attempt, and then I'll just have to wait for the next Starship launch. It is what it is. We'll do some Kerbal Space Program 2 gameplay once they do finally lift this rocket off, and if I'm not down there in Texas, because it's going to be about an hour between liftoff or between stage SEP and the splashdown of Starship. So We'll have about an hour of gameplay time of Kerbal Space Program 2. We'll build our own Starship in the game while we're waiting. Unless, of course, they have fun activities for us to watch during the live stream, but I doubt it. I appreciate you guys tuning in with me on Rumble for this one. I haven't decided yet if our next one's going to be on Rumble or YouTube or not. Maybe I'll go back and forth. I don't know. It depends on how nice Rumble is to me. You going to be nice to me, Rumble? You going to treat me like the princess I am to come back here and do another one of these live streams? Or should I go back to YouTube? Those commies. That's Kunu saying goodbye. I'm going to say goodbye. Until next time, Godspeed.